Hello, this is David Mixner, and welcome back to the video blog. Excuse my teeth a little bit. I had a fainting spell and lost some front teeth, but tomorrow I start getting them taken care of. But nevertheless, I have an important message for you today. And that is, are you ready for the nukes? Now, I'm known as, at 75 years old, as the later part of the boomer generation. But I also know and have followed myself over the years as the nuke generation. We are the first generation to really have to deal with nukes as a serious possibility in our life. I was born almost exactly a year after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so all my life, I have lived under the threat of the nukes. I remember in grade school, we would have drills where we would pretend that we were on alert for a nuke heading our way. And we would hide under a desk and learn to put our hands over our head. And it was serious business. But there was only one time in my life that I think any of us in America really thought that weapons could be launched against the United States. And that was 13 days in October under President Kennedy, when Khrushchev decided to build missiles with capacity for nukes to hit the United States directly. They were on ships heading for Cuba, and there was a strong confrontation those 13 days, and a real possibility that nukes could be used for the first time since Hiroshima. I remember during that time, my mother storing enough food, they said, for 2 weeks in the cellar. And believe me, our cellar was not great to go hide in. I remember my father making sure he had ammunition in case he needed it, and with his guns to protect us if there was a nuke war. But it was, fortunately, at the last minute, with a great deal of wisdom on President Kennedy's part, and a great deal of clever diplomatic work, averted. And those of us who every time they heard a jet during those 13 days would duck, thinking that, okay, here we go, breathed a sigh of relief, as did the entire planet. Now, which that brings us to today. We have lived since that time with actually treaties, and even the use of nuclear power as a way of providing energy. We saw the treaty in 1963 after that, which banned weapons. We saw treaties after that, which lowered the number of weapons, especially after the fall of the Soviet Empire. And ironically, we convinced Ukraine to do away with all of its weapons in the Ukraine because we guaranteed them, both Russia and the United States, that we would protect them. Now, we have a real serious situation right now, and it's not far-fetched to imagine that nuclear weapons could be used in the Ukraine. And both from a personal viewpoint and from a diplomatic viewpoint and from a military viewpoint, we have to prepare ahead of time. What is our position if that happens? First of all, we have a madman in Vladimir Putin, who is vying for his place among the Hall of Shame with Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler, and some of the worst of all kind. There is rumors that he is sick. There's rumors that he is dying, which in my book means he has nothing left to lose. Why not take a bunch of people with him? But most importantly, he has misjudged the political and military ramifications of his invasion of the Ukraine. He can't see an exit point where he can save face. And he sees himself going down in history as a huge failure unless he conquers Ukraine. Well, because of the extraordinary bravery and the courage of the Ukrainians, they have amazed the world how they have driven the Russian army out of the western part, have survived the mass destruction of cities and hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties committed by war crimes, individually by soldiers, and by policies coming out of the Kremlin. So he shifted everything east. And he has destroyed cities like Kharkiv and Mariupol, where there are just nothing but flat ashes. Tens of thousands have died in Mariupol. And even in the spite of that kind of destruction, Ukrainian fighters, fewer each day, are fighting from the steel mill to the last person in the name of Ukraine. Now, the first reports of their eastern front is that, yes, it's more massive and the destruction is unreal of small villages, and war crimes are being committed on a daily basis with average citizens with no provocation being pulled out of their homes and shot in the streets of Ukraine. We could get to a situation where, in order for Russia to have any chance of achieving any of their goals in the Ukraine, or even losing territory that they've held since 1992, where a man who is clearly mentally unstable, mentally challenged, the president of Russia, Putin, will order the use of tactical nuclear weapons against civilians in the Ukraine. Now, we have a way in military of giving names to things that doesn't really give you the idea of what we're talking about. Tactical nuclear weapons. Tactical. Sounds not that bad. Sounds like something you use on the battlefield. The lowest tactical nuclear weapon is twice the size of the bombs we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It would kill in one blast, level a city, killing like Odessa and killing hundreds of thousands. And we have to think, what is our response? We should prepare for it now. I'm sure the Biden administration is. I'm sure that we are looking at the possible consequences of that action taking place. What I know, that is no longer far-fetched, that for the first time in my 75 years of life, and for the first time since the nuclear age has begun, the second time, we are facing the possibility of those atrocious weapons being used in the Ukraine. North Korea looks like a picnic compared to this threat. What will be NATO's response? What will be your response? Are you ready mentally and physically and psychologically for this nuclear age to enter into a whole new stage? Because let me tell you, if they are used, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. And so prepare. Prepare for climate change and storms and disasters personally. You should have a supply of food anyhow for an earthquake or hurricane or anything, tornado, that will last you 2 weeks. You should have the kind of battery operated lighting facilities and the ability to eat without power. Because we're entering a whole new phase of warfare. And then think what you want and what we should do as a nation if those weapons are used. These are the kind of weapons you don't say is a red line. It almost underestimates that. These are the kind of weapons that make chemical warfare look easy. These are the kind of weapons that will change the world as we know it and a turning point in history. So are you ready for the nukes? Because it's a real possibility. And are we having the kind of discussions and the thought from our scholars and our diplomats and our military leaders to prepare for them? Russia has already committed massive war crimes, not only in the number of civilians killed, but in the use of cluster bombs and other weaponry that has been outlawed by civilized people in Geneva Accords. So whether they'll commit war crimes on a massive scale isn't an issue. They will, if needed. And they have said time and time again that they have this arsenal and they will use it if they're up against the wall. Now, Putin's circle has become so small. He is a sick man with psychological problems whose back could soon be put up against the wall. And his image and legend as he sees it, seriously threatened. The only person that seems to have his back is the foreign minister, who is a character right out of a James Bond villain. You know, with the glasses and you know, saying outrageous things and lurking behind the scenes. We're at a serious turning point. And I urge you as a friend and as someone who has lived through 75 years of this age, give it serious thought. Prepare for normal disasters anyhow. And if you're not prepared with first aid kits and foods and lanterns, you are doing yourself and your families a great disservice. We can all pray that we never will see this. I hope that you can tease me later that I was getting dramatic and didn't know what I was talking about. I will gladly admit that I was wrong. I love you all. Peace.